Happy Friday, and welcome to the Daily Dose. My name is Nolan, and today I am your host. I don't know about you, but if I took a look at myself from the outside, I wouldn't just naturally assume that I am clean and organized. And if you get to know me, you start to realize that my creative brain enjoys a little chaos and some mess. In fact, ever since I was a little boy, when my mom would ask me to clean my room, I would start by making that room messier. I'd take the clean items and throw them everywhere. So for instance, if I was asked to put away my clean clothes in my drawers, I'd take everything out of all the drawers just to put them up back again. And that hasn't changed. That's still my life. This is something I still do today. My music studio where I do all of my work, all of Calvary's worship audio and videos, was getting messy. So rather than clean up the little mess that I had, I took out all the boxes that I had stored from the move and I threw it all over the floor and started making piles. And now a few days or maybe even weeks later, I still have piles all over my studio floor. I think this is something that we do in life too. We all have messes. We have messes in our dating lives, our family lives, our financial lives, and so on. And there's all kinds of options out there to make these messes messier. Every mess we have comes with bad options. Borrow more money, lie bigger, destroy the evidence, hide, make up a story. There are always bad options that come with the mess. Some messes are unavoidable, and if you're dealing with a mess, there's not really a way to undo that mess, whether it be financial or health or your marriage. And we're all tempted to make these messes messier. There's a story in the book of Samuel about David. Many of you know about David. He was Jesus's great plus like 10 more greats grandpa. This David, as a little boy, was anointed to be king, even though there was already a king named Saul. And the story goes that David, a shepherd boy, went to visit his brothers at war, and the enemy had this giant on their side named Goliath, who scared the living daylights out of the Israel army. This boy named David thought that this giant wasn't much different than the bears and the lions that he had to fight to keep his sheep safe. So David kills Goliath, and everyone loves him. David all of a sudden was a celebrity in Israel. Everyone is talking about him and praising him. Well, this makes King Saul very nervous. The boy who has been anointed king by a prophet is now taking on armies and is a household name. 1 Samuel 18 says, "When Saul saw how successful David was, he was afraid of him. But all Israel and Judah loved David because he led them in their campaign." So David gets the title of leader, while the king is getting scared and angry. This is such a long story, so I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. King Saul gets so threatened by David that he tries to kill David. David runs with his posse, and Saul chases him with a large army. When David and his army gets to the Dead Sea, they realize they cannot outrun Saul and his army. So they split up and hide in different caves in the cliffs surrounding the sea to wait for Saul's army to pass so they can ambush them. Now, the funny part of the story is that Saul, like most of us, had to go to the bathroom and goes into the very cave that David is hiding in. Awkward. The guys that are with David are like, "This is what we've been waiting for. Saul is vulnerable and we can end this thing in a matter of seconds." David does not take that opportunity and will not let anyone touch King Saul, even though Saul has made their lives terrible. When Saul is finished, he goes back to his army and David steps out. Can you imagine? And this is what David says to Saul and his armies. It says in 1 Samuel 24, "This day you have seen with your own eyes how the Lord delivered you into my hands in the cave. Some urged me to kill you, but I spared you. I said, I will not lay my hand on my Lord, because he is the Lord's anointed. I have not wronged you, but you are hunting me down to take my life. May the Lord judge between you and me, and may the Lord avenge the wrongs you have done to me, but my hand will not touch you." As the old saying goes, from evildoers comes evil deeds, so my hand will not touch you. David had an opportunity to end this manhunt, this war that was threatening his life and the lives of his friends and family. David didn't even choose this mess that he was in. Sometimes we have messes in our lives that we don't choose, that we don't create. We inherit them. But often we create our messes, right? Well, David didn't even create this mess. He chose virtue. Pastor Andy Stanley says that most messes are created with a breakdown of virtue. And when we make a mess messier, we are just continuing this breakdown. We've heard this. 2 wrongs don't make a right. Me throwing all my junk all over the floor does not clean my desk. And we have this perfect and exciting story of David choosing virtue, integrity. Was killing Saul as he went to the bathroom justified? I'd say yes. Was it expected? Absolutely. His men thought he was crazy not to turn down this offer. But was it virtuous? No. Can you imagine being asked later as David, "How did you become king, David?" "Well, the current king at the time was relieving himself and I killed him." Nope, not virtuous. So David makes his speech and the king says, "You are a much better man than I am." He turns around and goes back home. And what I find fascinating about this story is that 7 chapters later in the book of Samuel, an arrow from the Philistines, Israel's army, hits Saul and kills him, and David becomes king. Every mess comes with bad options, but how you respond to the mess is the real story. We all have messes. We're all human. I'm not going to say that I make great decisions all the time. I have messes much bigger than my messy office. But how I respond and how you respond to the mess is the real story. What do you want your story to be? What do we want our story to be? Like the story about David, the virtuous one. The mess isn't our story. It's what we do. It's how we address the mess. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you watch this on Facebook, we would love it if you would share this. If you watched on YouTube, hit subscribe. And if you're watching on television, invite your friends to join along. God bless.
Oxygen, my very breath, the source of life, the source of rest. Oh, I need you. You're the wind that fills these fragile sails. You carry me through crashing waves. Oh, I need you. Oh, breathe in, you in, Yahweh, Yahweh. Breathe in, you in, Yahweh, Yahweh. Breathe in, you in, Yahweh, Yahweh. Breathe in, you in. Stars would have no shine. Stars would have no shine without your word. So be the spark, Lord, let me burn. Oh, I need you. Oh, I need you. Burning within, Yahweh, Yahweh. Burning within, Yahweh, Yahweh. in my heart, singing your name, Yahweh, Yahweh, singing your name, Yahweh, Yahweh, singing your name, Yahweh, Yahweh, singing your name, singing your name, Yahweh, Yahweh, singing your name, Yahweh, Yahweh, singing